everyone. You can call me America's Proud. Welcome to my first podcast. Somebody has to say it again. This is the story of my experience at the Southwest borders and how I was incarcerated in Mexico. I decided in December of 2021 to become a freelance photographer. So, I drove alone with my Chihuahua from Hollywood, Florida to Yuma, Arizona to help my country with, drug smuggling and human and sex trafficking. I got to the border wall and within about 2 hours I saw about 700 migrants from all different countries. Single young guys wearing really nice clothes just walking in through the wall opening, surrendering themselves, talking on cell phones and smoking cigarettes. Everything, I later learned, was given to them by a cartel. No COVID tests, though. No vaccine mandates for them. I asked the sheriff if he was there to help the migrants. He told me nope. He said he was there to protect the Border Patrol agents from the cartel. On my second day there at the Yuma Wall, I saw the Border Patrol agents and sheriffs run to their vehicles and race off. And, of course, I had to follow. So, when we got to the other opening, I spoke to the rancher there. He'd just been shot at by someone from the other side of the border. He told me it was a warning to stop taking pictures and to leave that area. I asked him if he stopped and left. He said no. He just called the police and kept filming. The rancher explained how the cartel sends migrants to the other opening as a decoy for the cartel to bring the fetynal in. Later that day, I heard several gunshots from across the border. Sounded like what I imagine a war zone would sound like. At one point while driving, I parked trying to take a picture of a guy standing on the other side of the border. He looked very suspicious to me. That's when I heard a loud gunshot, and it sounded like it was directed toward me. So I got into my car as fast as I could, and I drove back to where all the migrants were. By my third and last day at the wall, the agents were so busy processing everyone, they left me alone with about 100 illegals. I spoke to the guys there, and they all had the same story. They got to the border by a cartel member. One guy told me he was very scared the cartel took his house and had his mother as a hostage. He needed to work right away and to pay them, or they would kill his mom. One man said he was scared because he saw several people get shot by a coyote. Another guy told me he was robbed of all his money at gunpoint. After all that, it was time for me to head back home. I felt that I accomplished what I went there for, to see and expose the truth. By April of 2022, I was ready to venture again. Moving along, this time I had a traveling companion. We headed for Texas, and 2 days later, we arrived in Del Rio. The hotel clerk pointed me in the direction where I could take some pictures of the illegals hanging out at the local store. The next day, we drove to Eagle Pass. Friday afternoon, and traffic was thick. We were in the wrong lane, and I couldn't change lanes. And bam! Within seconds, we were crossing Bridge 1 into Mexico. We immediately got stopped and asked if we had a weapon. And I did, so I said yes. Then we were told we were getting arrested and going to jail. Next day, police dropped the charges and released my friend. In the meantime, after a couple of days in jail, National Guards with big guns and bulletproof vests drove me 5 hours to another jail. There, they put me in solitary confinement for a couple of hours and then transported me again, this time for 12 hours, handcuffed and shackled. Each time we stopped for gas and food, we were surrounded by National Guards. I was told we were being escorted and guarded because the drive was very dangerous. And the National Guards were being killed frequently by the Mexican cartel. Next, I was placed in maximum security in some penitentiaries down south. A couple of the girls there were telling me that the prison we were in was was the good one. The other prison, the bad one, is run by the cartel, and the guards buy and sell all the girls there. My new friends told me they paid their lawyer an additional $3,000 so they wouldn't be sent to the bad prison. Back in Florida, my family and friends had hired several lawyers. I imagine that's why the whole process went quite quickly. Within a day or two, I attended the pre-court. 2 days later, they gave me a speedy trial. My charges were dropped because I had no intention of going to Mexico, and the judge said it helped that I was a female, a foreigner, and an elderly, although that last part kind of offended me. Then the judge said there were no crimes committed, and I should have never been arrested. And then the penitentiary guards told me I was free to go. However, the Mexico immigrations didn't quite see it that way. In order to leave Mexico, I needed a passport from the U.S. Embassy, located in Mexico City, and the embassy needed my driver's license, which I didn't have with me. You know, I had to prove I was me. It got very complicated. They drove me about 3 hours to the Mexico immigrations, gave me a doctor checkup, a nice warm blanket, and drove me again to the place I spent the next 2 weeks. All the girls in there were from either Central or South America. I was the only American. The cartel had given them cell phones, sneakers, and 2 outfits. Each girl wore a different colored bracelet to show which cartel they were affiliated with. They all wanted to tell me their stories describing their involvement with the cartel and heartless coyotes. One new friend told me she paid her cartel guide $4,000 and still had to pay a remaining $10,000 when she arrived at her sister's house in the U.S. If she doesn't pay, the cartel will kill her mother. My other friend told me she'd have to pay $17,000 to the cartel when she gets to her brother's house in California. My best friend there cried to me, "I don't know why Americans don't want us there. We El Salvadorians are hard workers. We build schools and hospitals for you." Finally, I was released at 2:00 a.m. The Mexican National Guards transported me for 17 hours. Again, we were escorted because the ride was very dangerous, and the National Guards needed protection from the cartel. They dropped me off at the U.S. Reynosa border crossing, and there I was told that Reynosa is one of the most dangerous border towns in the world. And the Reynosa police were finding people cut up, burned, and placed in plastic bags. An Uber ride and $400 later, I was at Eagle Pass crossing again. I got a ride over Bridge 2 back into Mexico. I still had to get my car back and all my things, the cameras, my laptops, all my money. While taking a scenic drive, we got pulled over by a bunch of official-looking guys with big guns. They were not police. They were more likely to be cartel. I'm guessing they were looking for drugs, weapons, and immigrants. And we had none of those, so thank God they let us go. The next day it was 108 degrees and time for me to head back to the great U.S. of A. Throughout my travels, both in Mexico and in the United States, I witnessed endangerment and corruption. I saw how the Border Patrol and other law enforcement officers put their lives on the line every single day. I believe they need and deserve a lot more respect and much, much more government funding assistance. This is a drug crisis. The cartels are so strong, they're making billions of dollars off of fetynal. They're bringing it into our country and killing our kids. As for the migrants I spoke to, they all knew they were taking a chance of being abused, raped, robbed, and even murdered by the cartel. How people could put themselves and their family in this type of situation is beyond me. My border experience proved to me that there are critically dangerous cartel problems. In fact, There is a bit of insanity going on right now. Our leadership is weak with bad policies for our country's safety and national security. These policies need to be addressed immediately. Greg Gutfeld had it right when he said, "It's like we're living in a horror movie." I believe there's a fix, though. We're dealing with an international humanitarian catastrophe. We, the people, have to use good common sense, be brave, and speak up. And the border must be closed. Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out my next podcast. We have many topics to discuss. Increased random violence and rise in crime, schools, education, and sex change in children, the pipeline, our energy crisis, and our economy. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the notification bell. If you have any feedback or news tips for our show, please don't hesitate to email me. America's Proud. That's America's Proud at somebodyhastosayitagain.com. Thank you.